Okay, so this race problem with Anthony, Peter, Francis, and Christopher. We're looking at the first three to finish the race will receive ribbons. So we're trying to compare two different situations, which is more probable to occur. But in order to do that, I first need to figure out what are all of the possible ways that this race could be finished. So in what order could they all finish this race? So I'm going to use a tree diagram to set that up, and I'm just going to show you how I would set it up, and then again, I'll import one that I've done by hand. So there are four people in the race, so they could finish first, second, third, and fourth in this race. I'm going to just work with their initials to keep things simple. So in first, any of them could finish first. So Anthony, Peter, Francis, or Christopher could finish first. Now, here's where this is a little bit different than the boy problem, like the one where we're looking at what is the likelihood of having three boys in your family, because it doesn't matter if you have a boy first or a girl first, you still could have a boy or a girl next. But in this situation, Anthony finished first in the race, so there's no possibility that he can finish second. So I've only got three options here: Peter, Francis, and Christopher. This is kind of like that drop zone problem where we're going to start eliminating options as we move on in the race because you can't finish in more than one place. So if Anthony finishes first and Peter finishes second, then either Francis or Christopher are going to finish third. And if Anthony finishes first, Peter finishes second, Francis finishes third, then Christopher is going to finish fourth. And so Anthony first, Peter second, Christopher third, Francis fourth. So that's how I would complete this tree diagram, and I would just keep it going for every possible scenario. So I'll import the one that I've got that has all of the scenarios so you are able to check over your work, and then we can use that tree diagram to compare what would be more probable. First thing I'm going to do with my tree diagram is I'm going to count up all of the total branches in the tree, and that's going to give me my denominator. So that's going to give me the total possible amount of combinations that could occur. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, so my denominator, my total amount of possibilities is going to be 24 in this situation. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the two situations that we're going to compare. So it says, which is more probable? Both Anthony and Francis will receive ribbons. So both Anthony and Francis receiving ribbons, and it tells me that only the first three get ribbons. So I need to take a look at my tree diagram, and I need to look at which branches represent Anthony and Peter getting ribbons. So let's take a look. I can see this particular branch does, because we've got Anthony and Peter in first and second. So this branch then would be the same. So far we've got two. Now Anthony is definitely in first here and he's in third there, so this one works. Anthony is in first and Peter's in third, so that one works. The next one doesn't work because Anthony's in first, but Peter is in fourth. So let's look at Anthony, then Christopher. Well, Anthony, then Christopher, then Peter. That one works, but the next one doesn't. Okay, so let's take a look at where Peter finishes first. So again, this is going to be favorable for what we're looking for. So Peter is first, Anthony is second, so this one works. And so does the next one because Peter is still first and Anthony is still second. The next combination, we've got Peter first and Anthony third. So this one works, but the next one doesn't because Anthony's in fourth. Okay, so Peter first, Christopher second, Anthony in third, that works, but then in the next one, Anthony's in fourth, so that one doesn't work. So again, we're still looking for Anthony and Peter to be both in first, second, or third. Next situation, we've got Francis in first, but I see I've got Anthony in second and I've got Peter in third. So this one's going to work, but the next one doesn't because Peter is in fourth. So Francis first, then Peter second, then Anthony third. That one works, but the next one doesn't work because Anthony is in fourth. So we've got now Francis and then Christopher. Well, neither of those could possibly work because if I've got Francis and Christopher getting first and second, then I can't have Anthony and Peter both in between first to third. So let's go down to where Christopher's in first. If Christopher is in first, Anthony's in second, Peter's in third, that one works. But the next one doesn't work because Peter's in fourth. Christopher is in first, Peter's in second, Anthony's in third. That one works, but the next one doesn't. Anthony's in fourth. And then the next two don't work either because I've got Christopher in first, Francis in second, and that means that Anthony and Christopher or Anthony and Peter can't both be in first, second, or third. So I've completed that. So now what I do is I'm going to count up all of those yellow highlighted branches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so I'm just going to record that in yellow to keep my colors consistent. So I've got 12 out of 24 possibilities that Anthony and Peter are getting a ribbon, equal ribbon. Okay, let's now check out and we'll use, you know what, I think what I'll do is I'll erase all of this highlighting so that it's not so confusing to follow before we move on to the next scenario. So the situation we are comparing to is Peter will finish ahead of Francis and Christopher. So Peter finishing ahead of Francis and Christopher. What I'm looking for is the P to come before both the F and the C. I can see, so if Anthony's first and Peter's second, then both of these branches would work because Peter's ahead of both Francis and Christopher. But the next one doesn't work. The next one where it goes Anthony, then Francis, because Francis is in second, we haven't come across Peter yet. And then we've got Anthony, then Christopher, haven't come across Peter yet. So none of those are going to work. But if we go down, we look at the next section. Well, that's going to work in every possible scenario because Peter is in first place. So every single one of these is going to get highlighted because Peter's in first. So he definitely finishes before Francis and Christopher. Now we go to the next branch or the next section where Francis is in first. Well, Peter can't be ahead of Francis and Christopher if Francis is first. And the same with the last one, Christopher's first. So Peter can't be ahead of Francis and Christopher. So that's it. Those are all of my possible combinations. So I'm just going to count those up in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'll put that in green to stay consistent. So 8 out of 24 is our likelihood of P before F, and C. So my question is, which one is more probable? So my answer is going to be this scenario is more probable. It is more probable, and I would write this out by hand or with my stylus, but it'll be basically gibberish, I'm sure. So more probable that both Anthony and Peter are going to get ribbons than it is that Peter will finish ahead of both Francis and Christopher.